Good evening. I am Tiffany Moore Russell, the Orange County Clerk of Courts and Chair of the Central Florida Black Caucus of Local Elected Officials. On behalf of our members, we would like to welcome you to this Community Redistricting Forum. A special thank you to Representative Travaris McCurdy and his staff for coordinating tonight's event and for our panelists for extending their time to educate us on this crucial process. We felt it was necessary to host a forum to share information about this once per decade statewide redistricting process to redraw boundaries for our electoral and political districts based on the results of the census data. Ensuring fair districts is not just the responsibility of lawmakers, but just as important for concerned citizens like you who deserve and have the right to determine who represents your interests and communities for the next decade, as their influence will leave an impact on policies and critical initiatives that will affect our lives for years to come. So thank you for joining us this evening for this conversation, and we hope you are empowered to contribute to the current redistricting efforts. I will now give it over to our facilitator, Representative Travaris McCurdy. Thank you all for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Clerk Russell, and welcome everyone. First, it's important that we understand what redistricting is. So now I'll just give a general overview about clearly what is redistricting. Redistricting is the process by which state legislatures redraw the boundaries of legislative districts. These districts that get redrawn by the legislature include congressional seats, state house seats, and state senate seats. Land does not vote, people do. So everyone needs to be placed in a district with equal population. Redistricting is sometimes called districting, map making, line drawing, or reapportionment. Technically, apportionment or reapportionment have to do with allocating seats to a jurisdiction, not setting the boundaries, but we will treat these words the same. This year, we will redistrict the House and Senate seats. Reapportionment has given the state one additional congressional seat, 28 seats out of Florida's 435 in Congress. Counties and municipalities generally draw their own districts using their own procedures. Legislative districts form the backbone of our democratic process. The people are divided up into different districts which elect single officials to represent them in legislative bodies. This happens after each U.S. Census. At the federal level, as the population changes between states, the states are allocated a different number of seats in Congress based on their relative size. Some states get more seats and some lose seats. New districts have to be drawn so the state population is equally represented. At the state level, a similar process occurs where we take into account changes into population and redraw the state house and senate seats to balance the population. And with that, we'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
I'm not picking it up. You pick it up.
I'm not picking it up.
Well, somebody's got to pick it up.
I'll pick it up. They're clean. 'Cause my hand is clean. Oh yeah, I'm Charmin clean. That's how I know they're clean.
Charmin Ultra Strong is woven like a washcloth and just cleans better.
Yeah, I'm Charmin clean.
The kid does have a
That's
point.
My hand is clean.
Enjoy the go with Charmin. And for an extra clean finish, try Charmin Flushable Wipes.
Welcome back. Now it's time to introduce our panelists for tonight's discussion. First, we have Camille Evans representing the Orange County Redistricting Board. We also have Matt Sauce representing the City of Orlando Redistricting Board. And finally, we have Amy Enval representing the Orange County Public School Redistricting Board. Welcome and thank you all for joining us tonight. I'd like to ask you all to please introduce yourself and what roles you play in the Florida redistricting process. We'll start with Matt.
Good evening. My name is Matt Sauce. I'm an attorney with the City of Orlando, and I'm also legal advisor and staff lead to the city's Redistricting Advisory Board.
Thanks, Matt. Ms. Evans.
Good evening, and thank you, Travaris. It's a pleasure to be here. Representative McCurdy, excuse me. I want to thank you all for hosting this forum as well. My name is Camille Evans. I am a business and finance attorney and the co-founder and partner of Vertis LLP, a law firm here based in Orlando, Florida. With respect to redistricting, my role is to serve as co-chair for the Orange County 2021 Advisory Committee on Redistricting. We are a 15-member body appointed by the mayor and the Board of County Commissioners. We are charged with providing recommendations for the redistricting of Orange County 6 Commission districts. Our maps are due to the Board of County Commissioners in January. We plan to actually complete our work right before Christmas, around December 20th.
Wonderful. Thank you. We're happy to have you tonight. Ms. Amy Envall with Orange County Public Schools.
Good evening. Thank you for having this forum so we have this opportunity to share our processes. I am Amy Envall. I'm the General Counsel for Orange County Public Schools, and our office, along with our mapping folks and our GIS folks, we are the ones who are spearheading the reapportionment advisory committee for Orange County Public Schools. We call ours reapportionment just to avoid that confusion. A lot of times people think that reapportionment or redistricting is changing school zones. So we have historically used the term reapportionment to try to avoid that confusion. But again, we're governed under different statutes than the county or the city are. And we will have our process completed with the reapportionment advisory committee providing recommendations to the school board for final approval, hopefully on December 14th and or December 17th.
Wonderful. Thank you all. As you can see, we have some very highly educated, intelligent, and knowledgeable people joining us on this panel tonight. So I'll start with this. We know that the start of the Florida Legislative Committee weeks comes to the start. Well, we're already in committee weeks. We're actually in our 4th committee week coming up. So, and given the history of Florida's redistricting process, what can we expect to see over the course of the next few months from the Florida legislators during committee weeks as it relates to the redistricting process? And I'd like to speak on that for a little bit. So we have committees that are already formed in Tallahassee, and they're actively meeting throughout our committee weeks. Map proposals are coming in, and something that is important for the public to know, and which is why we felt tonight's discussion was very important. So oftentimes people get caught up in just thinking that, hey, after the census, redistricting only consists of your legislators in Tallahassee drawing state legislative and congressional seats. But as we see tonight with our panel, that's not the case. We have local municipalities that are also responsible for their own process. So in Tallahassee, there's an opportunity for the public to submit map proposals. I encourage those individuals who are interested to visit the myfloridahouse.gov website, where there's a dedicated website for redistricting, where you can go and have access to the same portal that members have access to in order to submit map proposals that you would like to see. But we all have to make sure that no apportionment plan or individual district can be drawn with the intent to favor or disfavor any political party or incumbent, and districts are drawn with the intent or result of denying or abridging the equal opportunity or racial language to minorities to participate in the political process. We don't want to diminish anyone's ability to elect representatives of their choice, and districts shall consist of contiguous territories. So my first question, not to myself now, I'll pose to Ms. Camille Evans. And Camille, just want to ask, how has gerrymandering negatively impacted minority groups, and how do you feel it dilutes power?
We're going to just jump right into the meat of things.
We're not playing around tonight.
Hey, I see you are not. Thank you for the question, Representative McCurdy. How has gerrymandering negatively impacted minority communities? Well, let's first talk about what is gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is the process of drawing political boundaries in a way that gives a party a numeric advantage over an opposing party. So there's generally 2 ways that's done. Either you consolidate, say, an opposing party into 1 or 2, a fewer number of districts than may be necessary, or you spread a particular, representatives or voters of an opposing party across a number of different districts in a way that dilutes their ability to have a base that would vote in their favor. That being the case, it dilutes the power, because in the spirit of one person, one vote, you would normally expect an ideal population distribution across all of the districts. So in this case, in Orange County, we have 1.4 million approximately people. That leaves us trying to put approximately 238,000 people in 6 districts. In each district as an ideal population. If you were to assume that there was a 50-50 split between Party A and Party B, one would assume that on an ideal population, if people all lived in the same spread across in an ideal spread across the county, you would have 3 districts of Party A and 3 districts of Party B. But if districts are boundaries are drawn in a way that gives Party A a favor over Party B, you would perhaps have 5-1 or 4-2. So it absolutely dilutes the power, because in the spirit of one person, one vote, if you have a 50-50 split, one would expect that the political power that is derived from the way the districts are drawn should be equivalent. But with gerrymandering, that does not in fact happen. In fact, what happens is you have potentially minority parties, as we see across the country and throughout the history of the United States, minority parties having minority populations as far as, I'm sorry, let me rephrase the way I'm saying it. You'll have a party that does not have a majority of the population, but has the majority of the elected districts in that jurisdiction. And so it absolutely dilutes the power. And what it does is it trickles all the way up and downstream. It's the ground game for retaining, obtaining and retaining political power. And it is where the secondary decisions get made. It's the way local elections get controlled. It's the way that midterm elections get controlled. It's the way that courts get packed, and it's the way that funds don't go to critical areas, because those areas that have limited representation due to the result of gerrymandering don't have the political power to change the will of the local jurisdictions.
Camille, that's a great answer. And I tell you what, your response wasn't diluted. So with that, that was very rich and strong. But we'll be right back after another very short, brief commercial break. And we're back. Next, I'd like to ask Matt Sauce with the City of Orlando. Matt, how can we make sure redistricting is conducted fairly in the Black and Brown communities?
I think participation is key. Oftentimes people think that local governments or advisory boards don't listen to citizens, and that's not the case. But especially in redistricting, advisory boards are reliant on citizen participation. Citizens help us determine what communities of interest are in our communities. They determine what neighborhoods should be kept together in a single district. So we really rely on citizen participation. And also by participating, whether it's an advisory board or consultants or legislators, citizens are ensuring that the decision makers understand that people are going to be holding them accountable and paying attention to what's happening.
Great answer. Amy, would you like to add anything about how we can make sure redistricting is conducted fairly in Black and Brown communities?
Sure. Under the principles, the race cannot be a predominant factor, but it can be a factor. I think the composition of your committees, if you have advisory committees, is very important. We are very blessed at Orange County Public Schools that we have a very diverse reapportionment advisory committee. And so all of our communities are representative. And I think that's a very important part.
Great. Camille, would you like to add anything?
No, not really. I think that both the other panelists hit it.
I think you're right. What we heard from Matt was participation, and Amy mentioned diversity. So reapportion doesn't happen without the census. So the census comes first. And like you mentioned, Amy, we live in such a diverse community. So I believe the responses that we get from folks, the participation that we get from folks during the census also is a direct impact of what we can do in this process of reapportionment. So now let me start with Amy on the next question. Is there anything that you think the Black and Brown communities should be concerned about when it comes to redistricting? And if so, what?
I think that Camille captured a lot of this. If the existing core districts are bifurcated or displaced, it would be a huge concern. So in large overgrown districts, people are going to be displaced. Unfortunately, there's been a huge, especially in Orange County, we have a lot of work to do to make sure that our populations are equally distributed. With respect to the school board, we have 7 school board member districts and the county has 6. So when Camille mentioned that she had 200, I think you said 230 some per each commission district with respect to the school board member districts, our goal is around 204,000 per each of our 7 school board member districts. So, but anyway, going back to that, I think it's really important that the existing core districts will be preserved. And we're looking at the same legal principles that everyone else is looking at, trying to keep our neighborhoods together, trying to keep looking at some geographical boundaries. And there's so many different things that we can factor in that will protect the whole process.
Wonderful. Matt Sauce, I'm going to throw this next question to you, man.
Sure.
All right. On a local level, what should residents be looking for when considering maps? And what additional information or data can you provide to help residents understand what is expected in this redistricting process? I think I may want to pose this question to everyone.
Well, again, I think determining what your priorities are when you're looking at the maps is key. For some people, keeping their neighborhood together in a single district is going to be very important. They're going to feel that they're going to be able to lobby their commissioner more effectively versus lobbying 2 separate commissioners. While other people might have a community of interest that they think needs to be kept in a single district, whether it's a historic preservation district, an urban core, a main street, that might be their focus. As it relates to additional data, I can speak to the city's process. We have odd year elections, so we have a little more time this cycle to start our redistricting process. So we'll be starting in January of 2022. It'll be similar to our previous redistricting processes in that it'll be citizen advisory board led. We'll have meetings in each commission district. Citizens will be able to draw maps at their home using cloud-based software. We'll be having public workshops to teach people how to use that software so we can have informed maps presented to our board to consider. And then we're tentatively planning to have our advisory board recommend a plan to City Council in June of 2022.
Great. And Camille, on a local level, what should residents be looking for when considering maps? What additional information or data can you provide to help residents understand what is expected in this redistricting process, specifically with Orange County? And I know the county has been doing their due diligence going around with their community sessions. So if you could just maybe want to speak on that a little bit.
Absolutely, thank you. First of all, I want to say, I'm going to take a step back and just kind of share, because Orange County is different than the city of Orlando. I mentioned earlier that we're going through our process now. We are actually in the midst of our meetings. We are similar to other jurisdictions doing meetings in each of the districts, as well as our main location is actually at Barnett Parks Recreational Center. That was required to provide additional social distancing space. So to the extent we are not in chambers, that's where our meetings are. All of the information regarding the Orange County redistricting process is available on ocfl.net/redistricting. There you can find a number of very important materials. Number 1, our meeting schedule. Number 2, you can find information about the applicable law. I think that's probably the number 1 thing that I think that a lot of people are not aware of how complex of a topic this is. And so you need to review that. There is an actual 70-page PowerPoint slide that our county attorney representative prepared for the public as well as the committee to review to help guide us. Things that I think data that's important for Orange County. 2 more things I want to say. we have a deadline for submitting maps that is on our website. I believe our deadline is going to be November 10th. So there is time. Similar to as Matt described, we have a online software called Maptitude. There is access to that. It is absolutely public. Anyone in the public can go online at that same ocfl.net/redistricting to sign up to make their own maps, to submit their maps. Maps must be submitted to a committee member for them to submit as a sponsored map for consideration. Each map will go through a 2-meeting review process as an information item and then as a discussion item. And then eventually, at the end of our process, we will have 2 public hearings, at which time we expect to reduce our work down to hopefully 1 proposal. But there is no limit on the number of maps that we suggest to the county. There's also likewise no limit on the number of maps that members of the public submit. The county on our website has provided a hotline that members of the public can use to get help using this software. One thing I think is really important for people to know that when you're doing the assignment of maps, it's through a census block analysis. And those census blocks are determined by the U.S. Census Bureau, and they are not things that the county can move. So you have to draw your lines using the census blocks. Lastly, I just want to share with respect to Orange County, we've talked about the significant level of growth that it had to that occurred over the last 10 years. We right now have a little bit over 1.4 million in aggregate population, which leaves us to trying to put approximately 238,000 people in each of the 6 districts. That is an ideal population distribution. Of course, the traditional redistricting guidelines allow for a deviation of up to 10%. But given that, I think it's important for Orange County voters and residents to know that we're going to have to move our lines fairly significantly. Based on the growth we've had in the last 10 years, District 1 currently sits at 12.73% above the ideal population split. District 4 sits above 9.5% above the ideal population split. And then districts 3, 2, and 6 all are approximately 7% below. So there will be some significant changes in the footprints of all of our, I would say all of our districts.
That's priceless information. And if you missed any of that and you want to get more information about the county's process, Camille just invited all of you to House District 46 because that's where Barnett Park is. So next, let's Amy. Question for you, Amy. Redistricting gives us an opportunity to increase diversity in schools through greater integration. So, A, overall, how does the redistricting process impact students and teachers? And B, does the city and county redistricting process influence OCPS's process?
So one of the most important things that I have to keep on reiterating with our constituents is that this is not redrawing district maps for school purposes. That is one of the common misconceptions. So we try to make sure, similar to the way the county has a website, Orange County does as well, or Orange County Public Schools does as well, www.ocps.net, and it's found under the school board tab. And we have a whole frequently asked questions section for 2021 reapportionment advisory committee. We have our current maps. We have the population distribution. We have all the new percentages, just like Camille was mentioning. We have significant growth in District 2, for instance, for the school board. We have a 25% increase in population. In District 25% is 25%. District 4 is a 31.4% increase in population. So we have a lot of work to do, just like the Orange County is going to have some significant district boundary lines. The school district is going to as well. And the other thing the school district has to keep in fact is that we have feeder patterns for our elementary schools, our middle schools, and our high schools. And as much as we would like to keep them all in the same district, it is just not possible. And so it may be that you might have one school board representative for your elementary school and one for your middle and high school. And it all depends on where those lines are drawn. But again, looking back forward, back to the question, I think the impact is it's important to have a fair and minority representation at the school board level and on the reapportionment advisory committee, and to serve as the voice. And that has exactly been what we have done. We have a very, very impressive group of people sitting on our reapportionment advisory committee, and they're very committed to looking at those. We're looking at the little squiggly lines that are currently at some of our maps and seeing if we can, move them to geographic, either roads or neighborhoods. We have a lot of neighborhoods that are split, which means a lot of the schools are split. And so we're, again, trying to, capture that as best as we can. Moving on to the second part of your question about whether the city and county redistricting process influences OCPS processes, it really doesn't. For instance, like in Orange County, in Osceola County and Seminole County, I believe they have 5 commission districts and 5 school board member districts. So a lot of times those maps overlay each other. But because we have at the school districts 7 school board member districts and the county has 6 commission districts, those lines aren't going to be the same. So you may be, you're going to have different numbers of representatives that are representing you on the school board and the county commission. And so hope that answered the question.
It absolutely did. That's good information. And that's why we wanted to have this, because we wanted to dispel some misconceptions and also educate folks on actually what is happening in our community right here in our backyard. On the state level, I'll just want to share this, just to give folks some type of snapshot. This is kind of the projected redistricting timeline that we're on. So we know in August of this year, the U.S. Census Bureau delivered the census results to the states. And beginning of September, the Speaker of the House made his appointments. The Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate made their appointments to the redistricting committees in Tallahassee, the committees and subcommittees, which we're fortunate with the Central Florida Black Caucus of local elected officials. We have members of our delegation that also actually serve on some of these redistricting committees in Tallahassee. So now presently we're in the education methodology and procedure portion of proposing on these maps. In September of 2022 from March 2022 through September, the legislature will hold hearings and adopt redistricting maps, and the reapportionment plan will be final. And we'll have some new districts and new boundaries. So that's just kind of a snapshot. And per the state constitution, they'll be done in the 2022 regular session, which convenes from January to March in Tallahassee. And if the legislature fails to adopt the plan, the state Supreme Court then draws the maps. I believe there was an incident situation a decade ago where the state Supreme Court had to interject, but we hopefully we'll avoid that pitfall this time. And with that, we're going to go to another very brief commercial, and we'll be right back in a few moments.
At Duke Energy, we deliver electricity and so much more, like free home energy assessments, rebates for energy-saving improvements, payment options to help you better manage your budget, and even bill credits for helping the community use less energy. So no matter what you're doing, we can help you make better energy choices every day. It's just another way we bring power to your life. How much can you save?
Welcome back, everyone. I told you it'll be brief, and we're back. So I just want to pose this last question, and we'll go around. We'll start with Matt, go to Camille, and we'll end with Amy on this question. What steps can the community take if the legislatures and local communities draw unfair districts?
Well, there's always legal action that can be taken. Usually you have to reside in the challenged district or be materially affected by the district boundary modifications, or action be taken by the Department of Justice, which is why participation is key, because once you get to the part of having determined whether or not legal action is necessary, you're going to be stuck in court for years and years, and election might occur in the interim, and then you really want to kind of avoid that outcome as much as possible.
Agreed. Camille?
I agree. Matt's right. The possibility of litigation always exists. And I will say that the best defense for that is starting with the end in mind. From a county perspective, our goal is to make sure that our process is fair, it's appropriate, and it ends up with the right result. And that requires us beginning from the outset with equipping the county, the committee, and all the members, the residents of the county, with as much information as possible. I think also it's really important that instead of just preparing to, potentially have a fight on your hand at the end, you have to participate throughout the entirety of the process. So I mentioned earlier, learning the applicable law, or at least getting familiar with it. And I think an easy way to skip being an expert on redistricting law is to find community groups like I know Equal Ground is one that is involved in the surveillance and the participation of redistricting processes in a number of different jurisdictions throughout the state. And then also make sure you're reviewing the map proposals that are provided. Redistricting by its nature is a process of us reviewing, seeing both the forest and the trees. And there's no way a body of 15 people can really know all the different elements and factors that members of different communities may bring to the analysis had we had that information. So it's really important to comment on the maps that are submitted so that we're aware of concerns that are raised. And I think also it's important to be mindful that we need to be considering communities of interest. And so if you have other members of your community of interest, and communities of interest are not just race or language based, they are absolutely, actual residential areas, commercial areas, healthcare areas, transportation, a number of different things that make us communities of interest. Pay attention to who else and what other elements are in your communities of interest and align with them, work with them, help them come up with maps that are mindful of the things that you have in mind. So it's not just everybody only thinking about their own backyard in the redistricting process. But at the end of the day, the possibility of litigation is high. This is the reality of the America we live in. But I think just engaging from a very informed perspective and a very active perspective will help mitigate some of that to the extent possible.
I like that. Pay attention. Pay attention. If you didn't remember anything else, take away anything else tonight, remember, pay attention to this process. Amy, what would you have to add as far as steps that the community can take if legislatures and local committees draw unfair districts?
I think I can't really add most of them. Everything has been covered already, but the transparency in the process is very, very important. And public input, like they go back to, we can provide public input through email. We have that ability. They can go in person. They can go meet with the reapportionment advisory committee member and get a map sponsored. We have a very similar process to the county, and we're also using the same software. So I think it's important if you either try the county software and try their maps, and then you can go to the school district and try our software and use our maps. I think that's a very important part because you don't have to learn two different systems, and you can practice making sure those communities of interest are preserved and your neighborhoods and things like that.
That's great. I also, from the space perspective, I just would like to remind and reiterate about the fair district amendments that we have here in place in the state of Florida. We have 2 tiers, and tier 2 really stands out because it explains that districts shall be as nearly equal in population as practicable, and districts shall be compact. Districts shall, where feasible, utilize existing political and geographical boundaries. So we're not moving somebody's district, from, the east side to the west side, if we can help it. So all districts also must comply with tier 1 standards, and districts must comply with tier 2 standards unless compliance conflicts with tier 1 standards. So this is sounding kind of like a law class, which I'm not an attorney. So I'm going to go to commercial, our final commercial, before we come back for our final remarks.
Catch a wave of excitement with the new Guy Harvey $500,000 Florida Cash Scratch-Off, featuring tons of cash and one-of-a-kind promotional prizes. Get yours today. The Florida Lottery. It's your ticket.
Claim it!
All right. Welcome back, everyone. Final remarks. We'll go back in this order. I'll start with Biz Amy Enval with OCPS. We'll go to Ms. Camille Evans, and we'll end with the gentleman, Mr. Matt Sauce. I just would like to know what do you want the audience to know, and what actions can we take to support you all in your effort to fight for fair maps? That's question one. Question two, can you share how the community can stay engaged in the state and local redistricting process? So what can we do to support you? How can a community stay engaged?
I think what can the community do to support the district is to provide us those comments about those communities. Let us know what makes your community special and what you think is the most important thing to preserve. Keep our neighborhoods intact if we can. We are also trying to work on our schools. I think that's an important part for the community to let us know about. And then to stay engaged in the local redistricting process. Again, we've really tried to have everything transparently placed on our website with all of our meeting materials. You can watch our meetings, you can listen to our meetings, you can submit electronic comments. There's frequently asked questions. Our maps are there. We don't have any proposed maps just yet. We're working on those with our committee members, but once those are up there, those are there, and we want the community to comment on those and say, hey, this isn't going to work because of this, or that's the public input that we're really looking for.
Wonderful. Ms. Evans, how can we support you in your work that you're doing on the committee, and what advice do you have the community to stay engaged?
So the best way you can be supportive is to tell a neighbor, tell a friend, tell a church member, tell your HOA that redistricting is underway, and they should be paying attention and providing comments like yesterday. We like the OCPS have online comment submissions as well as in-person meetings. It's important to note that November 10th is our deadline for submitting maps from the public, which need to be sponsored. So waiting until 10 p.m. on the 11th, on November 10th is not a good idea, because you'll need to track down a committee member and get them to help you log in, help you make your submission on time. But time is ticking, and it's really important for us to have your information. Similar to OCPS, our website shows both maps that are still in consideration as well as maps that are no longer in consideration. And we also include the legal and staff analysis relating to those proposals for people's review. It would be very helpful for members of the community to take a look at those maps and provide input. I will tell you, I'm pretty certain we have yet to see the perfect map for Orange County. And I expect a lot of work to happen in the next couple of weeks, and it'd be quite the flurry. So it's going to be fast and furious because our deadline is upcoming, but please engage and please take a time to submit a map, go on, learn maps to call the county, have your neighbors do it, talk it out, figure it out, because lines will move, and we would love to know in advance what people's main concerns are.
Great, thank you, Matt.
Amy and Camille covered most of my points, but the city looks forward to citizen participation when we begin our process, and we can't wait to see everyone come out and provide public input.
Great. So, audience, as you can see, you have the opportunity to have your voice heard. Not only have your voice heard, but actually have your ideas put to paper as far as map proposals on every level, from the city, the county, the school board, and as well as the legislative for the state and congressional map. So if you need any additional information, please don't hesitate to reach out, of course, to my office or to any office of one of the Central Florida Black Caucus of local elected officials who are part of this group and organization. I would like to take an opportunity to thank you all, thank every panelist tonight for taking time out of your schedule this rainy Thursday here in Central Florida to prepare our community for this redistricting process. We covered expectations, we covered the basis of redistricting, we covered projected timelines, and we also gave individuals some good action items that they can take home and be engaged actually and literally in this process. So with that, I would like to also just thank and recognize our chairwoman of this great organization and chairwoman Tiffany Moore Russell, our Orange County Clerk of Courts, and would like to thank Florida National News for their media partnership. And as a former staffer, I can't leave tonight without thanking Charlene Gatlin and Clerk Russell's office, as well as my two aides and Destiny Anderson and Monisha Perkins. So I thank everyone tonight. Thank you. Have a good night. I hope you enjoyed every commercial. To Camille Evans, to Matt Sauce, to Amy Enval, thank you all so much. Stay safe and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
The Florida Lottery is proud to support education by contributing billions of dollars to Florida schools and awarding countless Bright Future scholarships so Florida students can do more than just dream of a brighter future. They can create one. Learn more at flalottery.com.